Minnesota by 2. 2:30 to go on the board. Williams with 62. Williams gets it to go.
Well, I'm watching the game, y'all, so hopefully y'all can hear me good and all that. It's a 1-point game. I promised I'd take us live as soon as the Game 3 of the WNBA was over. It's 1:55 left in the game. It's a great game. And it's going to come down to the wire. Hey, listen, for those of you that are just jumping on, I'm multitasking because I'm watching the last 1:35 seconds of the Minnesota-New York WNBA Game 3. And New York has taken a lead. Oh, my goodness. I like Minnesota in this series, just as an FYI, y'all. But go ahead and share this. If you have your ballot, grab it. If there's a county you want me to cover over the next couple of days, go ahead and put the name of that county in the chat, okay? And I'm going to make sure that's available for you, okay? I'm going to check my connection and make sure I'm out there and you guys can see me. So I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick. 55 seconds left, and yeah. 55 seconds left. New York is up by 4. My goodness. My goodness, breaking my heart. So yeah, it looks like I'm out there. So I'm going to go ahead and get started in a minute. New York is on an 8-0 run. So grab your ballots. I'm James Gailliard. I am senior pastor of Word Tabernacle Church in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. Nothing that I'm saying tonight is from Word Tabernacle Church. Everything that I'm about to share is directly from me, James Gailliard. And so I don't want there to be any confusion about that, which is why we are on my personal platforms, both on YouTube and on Facebook. And tonight, as we start early voting tomorrow morning, I want to just go through the ballot real quick. And I'm going to say a few things about it. I want to make sure that everyone understands the why behind the vote. This is only going to be not even an hour long, okay? Because I'm going to be probably doing lives every day now through election day, because I think it's just that important. And so we're going to get started. I'm trying to wait for the last few seconds to tick down on this game before I jump on in, because I did say I would start immediately following the end of Game 3 for the WNBA. And here we go. So if you go ahead and share this with somebody, and if you want to let me know what county, I'm going to cover Nash and Edgecombe counties, maybe a little bit of Halifax County tonight. But most of what I'm going to cover is on every ballot and throughout the state. There's some local races that are different, obviously, right? Those would be school board races largely, or district court judge races. The important thing is that you vote. So I want to encourage you to have a plan to vote. I am going to be at the polls at the Braswell Library tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m. Polls open at 8 a.m. And we are down to a 2-point game with 34 seconds left. I'm loving the WNBA. Let me just tell you that. Can y'all hear me okay? Can you give me a thumbs up? For those of you that have jumped online, let me know that you can hear me okay. Let's see who can see me out here. So just waiting for the game to end up, y'all, okay? And then we're going to jump on in. Got a few of y'all out here. Jeff Simmons, wow. How are you, sir? Hope things are well with you. It's been a while. Who else is out here? Who else has commented out here? Latoya's out there. Donnie is out there. Hey, y'all. I'm trying to wait for the game to end. Go ahead and share this. And we're going to jump into the ballot. And Who's going to meet me at the poll in the morning? I want to see the largest day one turn in North Carolina history tomorrow. I ask everyone to vote early and to vote as early possible early, which is why I'm going to be at the polls at 8:30 in the morning. 7:30 in the morning, and I'm going to go vote at 8 o'clock as soon as the polls open up. Part of the reason it's so important to vote early is because then we get to deputize you so that you can help other people go ahead and vote early. Because we're going to need not just us voting, but everyone voting in all of their spheres of influence. And so what I'm going to post is we do what's called an affinity group early vote schedule. And the affinity group early vote schedule is exactly that. We list out every day in early voting. And the game is about to be over, y'all. We list out every day in early voting, and then we assign that day to certain groups. That way, if instead of you saying, hey, I've got 10 days or whatever the number is to vote early, then you can identify a day, because you know how it goes. So, well, I missed the first day because I had to work overtime. I missed it the second day because this happened. And before you know it, your early voting is over with and you didn't get a chance to vote early. And said, well, I'll just go election day, and then something could happen. And then remember, we still have a huge percentage of people that don't vote. And my real objective here is not only to be honest and transparent about how I'm voting and why, but so that hopefully my honesty and transparency can motivate other people to go ahead and vote as well. And so that's what the objective of this. I'm stalling on time just a little bit because I'm waiting for the game to end. And so I'm going to give it just another possession or two, and then I'm going to jump on in. If you have questions, go ahead and share those questions. I'll be happy to address them and answer them. Hopefully everybody can hear me really clearly and really plainly. And so I can hear you well. We're good on YouTube. We can hear you. Also, we requested Edgecombe. Yes, I have Edgecombe ballots, Edgecombe County's ballot as well. And listen, I'm just going to be really honest and transparent with folk, y'all. But I want us to get beyond the emotion of our voting, even though that has a space. But if you watch my show every Monday, I'm always talking about data over emotion and how it's important that we have to be data-driven and fact-driven people. And oftentimes we're not. And so I'm recording tonight, by the way, if you're wondering, from our Airbnb, which is called The Assembly. And so this is actually the lounge room of our assembly. That's my carpet from when I was serving my 2 terms in the North Carolina General Assembly. So 16 seconds left. So go ahead and share it. And tonight I'm going to cover mostly Council of State, a couple of local elections, and I'm going to cover the referendum, the constitutional amendment, which I've already publicly been stating I'm just not a fan of at all. And I'll talk about that. This is a 1-point game, y'all, with 16 seconds. So can y'all tell that I'm a WNBA fan? I'm going to be wearing We Vote North Carolina all till now, till election day. I'm preaching in it, the whole 9 yards. If you want a shirt, baseball cap, send me a message, and we'll see that you find a way to get one to you, wherever county you're in, okay? And so here we have 16 seconds left in the game. And so let me talk about, while we're waiting for the game to wind down, on all of our ballots, there are going to be some statewide races. You're going to have a couple of federal races. That's obviously going to be the presidency, and then whatever congressional district you're in. I'm in the 1st congressional district. And so every congressional seat, that's 435 of them in the United States House of Representatives, is up for re-election. All 435. We only have one really competitive, statistically, congressional race in North Carolina, which is Don Davis's race. And he has 2 people opposing him, a libertarian named Tom Bailey and Laurie Buckhout, who is Republican candidate. But I would argue that there are some other congressional races throughout the state that, if people just turned out, could actually be winnable in ways that we didn't realize. So we're leaving a lot of votes on the table, and we're leaving a lot of power and a lot of influence on the table. and I want to encourage us. I'm not trying to shame anyone or blame anyone into voting or how to vote. What I will tell you is that to the language of the article I just read today, you may not be interested in politics, but politics is interested in you, which is why we wind up with higher rent payments, because legally and regulatorily people are able to do things like that. We wind up with higher interest rates. We wind up with a higher percentage of rejections in mortgage applications. We wind up not getting promoted. And I think that is it. 3-point game with a second left, y'all. So that's officially a wrap. Well, not officially a wrap because it's a second left, but wow, what a series. Are y'all liking the WNBA? I am loving the WNBA. Ionescu has not been nailing shots all night. And of course, with a few seconds left, she nails that. And so they're going to have to just quick pop. This took a little bit more time than I thought. All right. That's the game. New York won by 3, 80-77, 2 games to 1. I'm James Gailliard. Welcome to my ballot show. It is voting. It's early voting election eve. And so this is the eve before the start of early voting. I am asking everyone who is listening to me to vote early, and not just to vote early, to vote early. So I'm looking for 50 people to take selfies in each of these polling locations, and I want you to hashtag everything we vote NC. Hashtag we vote NC. That's what you see here. We vote NC, and we're asking everybody to do that. So let's go. Okay. First thing that I want to encourage everyone to do is I want to encourage everyone to vote the whole ballot. If you have to remember, start in the back of the ballot, start at the very bottom and work your way all the way up, turn it up until you get to the top race, which is the presidency. I don't want you starting at the top, working your way down, because you may not make it all the way down. And so I don't want you feeling as if you only have a responsibility to vote for the president. We need to vote the whole ballot, okay? So I want us to be clear about that. Now, having started at the bottom of the ballot, there is a constitutional amendment. It's referred to as a referendum on your ballot. I want to read it to you. This is what it's going to say because it sounds reasonable. It says, constitutional amendment to provide that only a citizen of the United States who is 18 years of age and otherwise possessing the qualifications for voting shall be entitled to vote at any election in this state. What's wrong with that? Well, the reason I don't like this amendment, and I'm asking everyone to vote against the constitutional amendment. And listen, I spent almost my whole life as an independent. I officially became a Democrat in 2016 when I first ran for office, because as an independent, you just can't get elected in this state. But there's still a part of me that is still very moderate, right? Even though I'm a proud Dem, but there's still a part of me that's moderate. When I looked at this bill, I was shocked how many Democrats voted for this. It was definitely a bipartisan measure in the General Assembly. So you're saying, what's wrong with saying only a citizen can vote? This amendment doesn't tell you what's currently in the state constitution. What's currently in the state constitution is this is the language, and this is the language they're striking. They're removing this. Every person born in the United States and every person who has been naturalized. So naturalization, when we remove naturalization, we open up the door for confusion of people that migrated here, became a legal United States citizen. The way they become a legal United States citizen is through a process called naturalization. If we were to remove naturalized from the Constitution, it is going to create, it's going to suppress the vote of people that legally migrated here. The whole objective of this is to get legal migrants to not vote. That is the whole impetus behind this. So when you see all of these ads around tightening up the borders and all of that. Let me tell you the lie attached to it. The lie attached to it is that they're claiming that they're good with legal migration. They just want to tighten up the borders so we no longer have illegal migration. This constitutional amendment proves that they are not good with any kind of migration, immigration. And so there's no reason to remove the reference to being born in this country or being a naturalized citizen. There's no reason to do this. And so I would ask everyone to please vote against the constitutional amendment. We need to defeat this. And I think if my friends in Eastern North Carolina will work with me, I think we can have a stronger turnout in Rocky Mount and All Points East, or Wilson and All Points East. And I think just our influence alone could sway this election, okay? And so let me start at the top now, even though I want you to start at the bottom, but I wanted to cover that constitutional amendment. Partisan election, the first election you're going to see is for the presidency of the United States. Many of you know I am all in with Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. And it's not because they're Democrat. It's not because she's Black. I'm tired of hearing that conversation about Black people are voting for her because she's Black. I mean, for the most part, white people have voted for a white person their entire life for presidency. Was it because of the person's race? No, it wasn't. And so it's not the case for us either. I do think that she is the better qualified human being. And more than that, she just has character. And maybe you're a person that believes the means that doesn't justify the end, or doesn't have to justify the end. But I believe that the means matter. It's not just how we get there. It's not just that we got there, but it's how we get there. And so when we look at everything that a Trump presidency could mean for America, and particularly what it could mean for me as a Black American and for my children. And we may have a handful of people that want to, jump on the Trump bandwagon. And it may be a handful of Black men who feel like, hey, I'm going to vote for Trump. And you have your reasons for doing that. But I can tell you that if we really want to right the ship of America, then we're going to need to move it in a different direction. And I think Kamala Harris is going to move us forward in a different direction. I want to live in America where everyone has some opportunity, not just a handful of people. If you've grown up white, you've grown up with privilege, you've grown up with entitlement. That to be Black in America means for the overwhelming majority, not just the overwhelming majority of the history of America. I want you to hear what I'm about to say. The overwhelming majority of the history of America, Black people have been oppressed. And so, people say that was so far back in history. It was not that far back in history. And so I desegregated public schools in Philadelphia in 1977. 1977, we still had segregated schools in Philadelphia. So don't tell me, that it was that far ago, because most of the people who telling me it was that long ago, you didn't have to worry about desegregating schools. So there you have that, okay? Our church is one of the most successful churches in the state. Audited financials, millions of dollars in assets, thousands of members. And just 10 years ago, we were redlined by every mainstream bank in our region. And the only way we could get a loan to do the work that we wanted to do, which was to buy the Home Depot and to convert it into a world-class facility, which we have successfully done. The only way we could accomplish it was with a bank loan from a Black bank, Mechanics and Farmer Bank. Every other mainstream, predominantly white bank redlined us 10 years ago. That was with audited financials. That was with a 50% deposit. That was with a clear business plan. That was with a minimal debt service coverage ratio. And so when people say those kinds of things are historically in the past, they're not. They are still current day. And a vote for Donald Trump would only perpetuate that. And we need to change that. So I'm voting for Kamala Harris for president. I'm going to be posting some pictures saying I'm with her. Secondly, you're going to see your congressional races. And again, North Carolina has 14 congressional districts, okay? And so you need to know what congressional district you're in. I'm in the 1st congressional district. They have been drawing these districts real crazy. And they've drawn them now in this election cycle that we could potentially go from 7-7, 7 Democrats and 7 Republicans to something like 11 Republicans and 3 Democrats. And so Don Davis is my congressman. He has a very difficult race. Everyone in the East, your vote is going to matter on this. And I'm asking African-American churches to adopt the precinct that your church is located in, and literally be going door to door, go to door, making phone calls. I can give you the information on how to do that. I can share with you how to do that. And so I want to encourage you to do that. Then there's going to be the North Carolina governor's race. I think that Josh Stein has already won this. Obviously, we need to go ahead and vote, right? But Mark Robinson is just a poor candidate, and everybody's trying to bail from him from the Republican Party. And they should be. They should have never jumped on the bandwagon. But they always want to find somebody who thinks they're different, somebody that thinks they're special. I've been in meetings with him. I've been in his presence. I have found him to be abrasive. I have found him to be very arrogant. I found him to be very self-promoting and not really caring a whole lot about the community or the state. And so we need to go ahead and elect Josh Stein, who's currently our Attorney General, and go ahead and fill in that bubble for Josh Stein. Then you see Lieutenant Governor. Rachel Hunt is a name in North Carolina politics everybody should know because her dad was the longest serving governor in the state of North Carolina's history. I served with her in the North Carolina General Assembly in the State House. She's currently a state senator, and she is the best candidate for lieutenant governor. So your vote for lieutenant governor should be Rachel Hunt. That's who my vote is. And listen, let me just say this, and some of you are going to be very surprised by this. This is the first time, I think, in my lifetime that I have not voted for at least one Republican candidate. Again, I spent my whole life an independent. And so every election, there's been some Republican that I felt comfortable voting for. This is the first time, and I'm asking people to trust my voice and my influence. This is not the election to split a ticket. And this is not the election to complete a partial ballot. And so this is the election where you vote for every Democrat on your ballot. Every Democrat on your ballot. Let me tell you why. Because there is a supermajority that the Republicans have in the State House in North Carolina. That supermajority has created havoc on infrastructure, on businesses, on workforce, on public education, on access to health care, that we need a checks and balance. And if for no other reason, we need to have whoever the governor is, in this situation, I believe is going to be Josh Stein, he has to have the ability to get a veto sustained. That's the only way we're going to get great legislation across the finish line, so that when bad bills come, the governor can veto it, and we have enough people in the General Assembly, even if we don't have a majority, that can sustain that veto. That is what's going to give us good policy. So even if you're listening to me and you are a Republican, listen to me and listen to me well. The overwhelming majority of legislation that comes across our state really only benefits about 20% of the population. The Democrats, people of color, white moderates, suburban white women, college-educated white men, their legislation doesn't benefit you. And the only way it's going to benefit you is that you have to work with us to create a balance. And that's what I'm asking you to do. Okay. So you just have to trust in this one ballot. You're saying, you know what? I'm going straight Democrat. Jeff Jackson. And listen, I mean, real talk. I got who's talking about the Attorney General's race? You know, I'm going to say some, honest things from my lens. Nobody is talking about the Attorney General's race. We don't have, Jeff Jackson is more of a TikTok legislator. He really became popular by way of social media when he was a state senator, and then he went to Congress. Then he drew him out of his district, and he landed on the Attorney General's race was the one available. I think Jeff would have run for anything personally. I have not seen him a single time in the East. That's not to say he wasn't here. I haven't seen him. I haven't known of him attending anything. But nobody could be worse than Dan Bishop. And so even though like some of these folk you're going to just have to vote for, and do not skip the bubble. Are y'all hearing me? Do not skip the bubble. So am I thrilled to be voting for Jeff Jackson? I'm not. But I'm going to vote for Jeff Jackson because the last human being that needs to be our Attorney General is Dan Bishop. The last human being. We do not need MAGA Republicans in statewide office. So these are the races that are referred to as Council of State. Your governor, our lieutenant governor, our attorney general. North Carolina auditor is currently being held by Jessica Holmes. We have had very few people of color ever elected to statewide office in North Carolina. Upon the resignation of Beth Wood, the governor appointed Jessica Holmes. And she's done a great job. And I want to ask your support of Jessica Holmes. I looked up Dave Bolliet, who is the Republican Party. He's on the board of trustees, I believe, of UNC Chapel Hill. So I looked at his website, and I was shocked by who he was going after. He was recommending that the state auditor's office go after, first of all, Durham County Public Schools. And then he recommended that the state auditor's office go after Elizabeth City. What do those communities have in common? A majority African-American controlled political environment. So it's just ironic to me that and then he's in massive support of all the cuts that the UNC system did to DEI. So you got a guy who, like, if I could become state auditor, I would go after every municipality and every school system that had people of color running it. That's Dave Bollier, in my opinion. This is just James Gailliard's opinion of the ballot, okay? And so you need to vote for Jessica Holmes for NC auditor. Commissioner of Agriculture. Listen, Steve Troxler, the Republican, has got a lock on agriculture in our state. He has for a long time. I haven't had a chance to do any hardcore shows about him. Sarah Tabor is the Democrat running against him. I mean, just real talk. I mean, you saying, who am I? I told you, like, I'm voting straight Dem this ticket. I've never done that before. I do think Steve Troxler wins this race personally. But, you know, I think Steve Troxler is going to be hard to beat. Commissioner of Insurance, Mike Causey and Natasha Marcus. Natasha's great. State senator, bright, ethical, and I hope that we'll be able to get her across the finish line for Commissioner of Insurance. Commissioner of Labor, the current Commissioner of Labor did not seek re-election, which is Josh Dobson. Braxton Winston, former mayor pro tem from Charlotte, and city council member of Charlotte, understands labor, understands the workforce, hard to run statewide as a person of color. It's hard to raise the money, but I think he's a better candidate than Luke Farley. And so Braxton Winston gets my vote for Commissioner of Labor. Secretary of State is hands down, that's the easy one, Elaine Marshall. I'm not even going to spend any time and energy on that because Elaine Marshall is just an icon in North Carolina politics and just an all-around decent person and is doing an extraordinary job in that capacity. I think the most important race in the Council of State is probably for Superintendent of Public Instruction. This is a great example of how people get caught up in emotional voting. There's no scenario by which this race should be even close. The Republicans have run the worst possible candidate in Michelle Morrow. MAGA Republican, called for the execution of Barack Obama, said it should have been televised and people should have to pay for it so we could pay down some of the debt and the U.S. debt to do it. As a result, I mean, she is a flat out, I hate public education human being. Meanwhile, you have Mo Green, who was superintendent of like the third largest school system in the state in Guilford County, was chief counsel because he's a Duke trained attorney. in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. He understands that a former philanthropy head, president of a foundation, he is a superior candidate. Duke undergrad, Duke Law School, Divine Nine, I think he's an alpha. He's got the resume. And meanwhile, this race is close. In what universe? This is where we can't sit on the sidelines. Like, if you have a child in public school, you need to be voting in this race. If you don't have a child in public school, you need to be voting on this race, because almost everybody you're going to interact with on a day-by-day basis went to public schools. So we are destroying public education in North Carolina, and we need a real champion and a real advocate. And so Maurice Green, North Carolina Superintendent of Public Instruction. NC Treasurer. I think this is another example where someone's asking for Greene County ballot. Okay, I will get you Greene County ballot. I will do that as well. I'll mark it. This is another example, NC Treasurer. The Democratic person running is actually a third-term U.S. state rep. A North Carolina state rep, Wesley Harris. He has a PhD in economics. Like, he literally is the nerd on the team. Highly qualified. He has been working. I think Wesley has, if there's anyone who's going to win it because they earned it, they worked for it, Wesley Harris is that guy for me. Like, Wesley, I think, worked for it. He was out there. Who is Brad Weiner anyway? I've heard nothing of him here in the East, not a thing. I've looked up, I personally have seen Wesley Harris 4 or 5 times in the East. He has worked so hard, and he's the properly qualified guy to do it. So Wesley Harris for NC Treasurer. Now, we're going to start, that's your Council of State races, okay? Now you're going to start getting into, on your ballots, you're going to start getting into your judicial races. So understand the flow of your ballot. President, Congress, and then Council of State. At the end of your Council of State, that's going to end with the treasurer's race. Now you're going to get into your judicial races. These are your courts, okay? Some of these are going to be statewide, okay? So some of these names will be on everybody's ballot. Allison Riggs is hands down the best candidate for Associate Justice, no question. The criticism people they have of her said, we already have Anita Earls, and she's a protege of Anita Earls. Well, let me tell you something. We would be blessed to have 2 Anita Earls on the North Carolina State Supreme Court. So if that's the biggest complaint against Allison Riggs, is that she's Anita Earls' protege, so have it, I'll take her. Allison is amazing, and she's a great candidate. Carolyn Thompson, she has worked so hard. And now she is up running for appellate court. Our appellate court judges are so important, because when we don't like the way, when someone feels as if a judge did not properly rule, or there was some type of malfeasance or something going on, it gets appealed. And we need people that are going to be honest, fair people on that appeals court. It's called the appellate court. Carolyn Thompson, hands down, the best candidate for that. The other appeals court seat in District 14 is Ed Eldred, another outstanding candidate who I would ask you to vote for. And then there's a seat 15, Martin Moore is your person. So seat 15 is Martin Moore. So those are your 3 judicial races, or 4 judicial races. You have 3 appellate races and 1 state Supreme Court race. Okay, you're going to have 4 judicial races on your candidate, on your ballot. Then you're going to turn it over. When you turn it over, you're going to start to see your state house races, the Senate and your House of Representatives. Every state Senate seat is up, and every seat is up in the state house. That's the General Assembly, okay? So we've got 50 state Senate seats up. We have 100 counties. Some counties are big enough to have a state Senate person just to themselves. Some you share counties, okay? So you've got state Senate. In our race, for example, is 3 counties. And then you have your House races, and all 120 House seats are up for election. Okay, these are so important. These impact us probably more than any other races on the whole ballot directly. James Mercer is on the ballot against two-term senator. I think this would be her second term. She served a term in the Senate and I think a term, maybe 2 terms in the state house, something like that. Well-known person in our community. And here's my problem with Lisa Barnes and why I'm not voting for her. She does not know how to vote for community-wide concerns. She's a straight, easy vote for the Republican Party, even if the bill stinks. And I just don't have respect for legislators that voted to gut public education. And I was really surprised. I was watching TV, a commercial came up that was an attack ad on James Mercer. And I'm always looking at who paid for it. Because when I ran for office, they brought me some commercials to run against even Lisa, and I refused to do it. And in some situations, they still ran them, but they weren't paid for by my campaign because I just wasn't going to be a part of that. I was really surprised by the dishonesty of this ad against James Mercer. And the reason this is the reason. The whole commercial talks about all these things he voted to do. He voted to do this. He voted to do that. He voted against this. He voted against public education. Here's the thing. The man has never been in elected office. So he's never voted for anything. So they created a whole commercial saying all these things that he voted for that he never did, and then proudly paid for by Lisa Barnes. We don't need that lack of integrity in our politics. And listen, I'll probably see her at the country club in a few days. But that's how I feel. You know, at some point, if God is going to bless us with influence, then we've got to use it to try to help people. And as to put it in church perspective, tell the truth and shame the devil. So James Mercer is your candidate for State Senate, District 11. If you're in Nash County, Franklin County, I'm going through the Nash County ballot right now. House of Representatives, Lorenzo Wilkins is the Democratic candidate against Alan Chester. Alan Chester defeated me in my last race. The district was drawn in a way that I wasn't able to win it. It was a funky time for me anyway. My mother had just passed away and it just wasn't a good time for me. I lost the race. Alan Chester's voting record has been despicable. He has been another straight, I'm a safe vote for the Republican Party. Listen, when all these folk are voting to spend $435 million to give to opportunity scholarships and gut public education, I just don't think they're good people for us. And the billions of dollars, I just finished reading an article, the Republican Party gave $2.5 billion to various nonprofits, for-profit corporations. We've never done that without a bid process. They literally wrote their friends into the state budget. So it's been corruption at the highest level, which is why we need to make sure we get rid of that supermajority that the Republican Party has. So if you're watching this, I don't care what your party affiliation is, when it comes to your state house and state senate, you need to vote Democrat. We have to break this supermajority so we can get good legislation for Black people, white people, brown people, yellow people, females, males, LGBTQ+, private school, public schools. We need good legislation for everybody, not just for a small set of the people. The only way we see that happen is if we vote Democrats into the state house and into the state senate. Now you're going to have your district court races. A lot of these, in some communities, they're not going to be contested. In our district, you got Tim Wilson, outstanding. That's my guy, no problems. He's not even being contested. Will Solomon's not being contested, even though that seat is about to be appointed to somebody because he's resigned from the bench. You have Matt Sparati and Jennifer Bennington. And listen, I like them both. I'm voting for Matt Sparati, who's just in church with me. Jennifer comes to my church from time to time. I think we are just at a space where we have to vote Democrats on this ballot. I do think, given Matt's long-standing history in our community, he's going to serve very well on the bench. And I hope you'll join me in supporting and voting for Matt Sparati for district court judge. Ed Brown doesn't have an opponent on the Nash County ballot. William Farris doesn't have an opponent on the Nash Wilson ballot. Alicia Slaughter doesn't have an opponent. She won hers in the primary. And then you've got your Register of Deeds, no opponent, Sandra Davis. And then you have your Nash County Board of Election races. And these are really, really important races. I thought I had written down some details. In Nash County, legislation recently was enacted for the school board races to seats to match the county commissioners. So you've got several races at play that I want you to be mindful of. I'll go through them a little bit later on, but everyone's going to have some different names on your ballot. I have got to find the sheet that I wrote those on, okay? And then, as I said, you're going to have your constitutional amendment. Well, you'll have your soil and water conservation district supervisor, okay? And then you'll have a constitutional amendment. And again, I want to reiterate, we are against the constitutional amendment, okay? We are against the constitutional amendment. Let me go through Halifax County real quick, because they don't get the love, and I think we need as much love in the East as possible. The thing that I want to just draw our attention to on the Halifax County ballot, many of the same seats that I have referenced, you will see here. You do have a state Senate race that's different and a House race that's different. Rodney Pierce doesn't have a competition in the Republican Party. He beat Michael Ray. I served for 2 terms with Michael Ray, but with his record for Halifax County was despicable. And so I'm so proud of Rodney Pierce. And he's going to serve you very well, Halifax County, and I hope he's your representative for a long time to come. I can already tell you that there are people at play trying to make him ineffective so that Michael Ray can run against him again. So we need to work hard to support Rodney Pierce. Tare Davis is going to be he is a great District 2 candidate for state Senate. I want everybody that is in, you see T. Davis on your ballot, make sure you are supporting T. Davis, okay? I'm not going to get into some of the races. When you look at the Weldon City Schools Board of Education, you've got 1, 2, 3, you've got 6 people here. You get to vote for 3 of them. Odie Sykes, who is the moderator of the Neuse River Association and Reed Creek Association, is amongst those names. I'm not going to highlight the others. I will say, to have 3 separate school systems in Halifax County, as small as they are, Weldon City Schools, Halifax County Schools, Roanoke Rapids City Schools, that is despicable for that community. And at some point, we're going to need people running for Board of Education that are going to say, listen, we need to merge these school systems. It is a disservice to the students and the faculty of their schools to have 3 separate school systems in such a small community. That's just problematic, y'all. All right. Just joining us, James Gailliard. We're voting tomorrow morning. Is 50 people going to meet me at 7:30 in the morning? Well, you can come at 8 o'clock. I'm going to be there at 7:30. But can I get 50 people to join me at the Braswell Library? And let's vote. Can I get 50 people to commit in Wilson? Can I get 50 people to commit in Edgecombe County? I want you to be the first people to vote. I want you to go ahead and post that you voted. Take a picture with your crew and then hashtag it, We Vote NC. Hashtag We Vote NC, okay? Edgecombe County ballot. This is my only blue ballot. Somebody gave me this the other day, and I take my glasses off for this so I can read. You know, these eyes are getting older, right? So 10:43, I'm going to spend 5 more minutes. I'm going to let you go. So your partisan, your presidential races are all the same. Your federal race is the same with the 1st Congressional District. The governor, all your council of states are the same, okay? And then you get into your judicial races. They are all the same. And so nothing changes until you get down to your state Senate and your state House races. That's when your ballot changes for everybody, okay? So just remember that. First part of the ballot, first page of the ballot, same for everybody. Get on the back part of the ballot, that becomes more localized. I want you to think of it like that. Candy Smith she has got to be like one of the biggest fighters in the Senate. She is fighting so hard for Pitt County and Edgecombe County. I'm so proud of her. I served with her in the state house, and she became a state senator when Don Davis became congressman. She's doing an exceptional job. You have Shelley Willingham. I mean, this is largely a Democratic district. And so the Republican candidate really, who is Brent Roberson, really has no shot at all. I will say that I'm disappointed with Shelley's voting record. We got to vote for him because we're better to have him than a Republican. But we need to really take a good hard look at this seat and this race moving into the next election cycle. I'm just going to say that, okay? Will Solomon, nobody's running against the Matt Sparati races there. Again, the rest of these races are not contested, and you don't really get to another contested race until anything else you got to vote for until the constitutional amendment. And so, and again, this should be against. This should be against. And so somebody gave me a sample ballot for Edgecombe County that says it should be for, and it should not be. So I want to know where this ballot came from because that's not cool. So against on the constitutional amendment. Let me say this, Edgecombe County. Your voting is so important. Edgecombe County, because there's not a lot of real competitive local races, that sometimes the down ballot is not real strong, and sometimes people just sit out the process. And I want to encourage you. I want to encourage you to get people out in Edgecombe County. If the turnout increases by 15 or 20% in Edgecombe County, that's enough votes maybe to win the state. This is an opportunity to highlight Eastern North Carolina at the federal level. And when we do that, if we can show that we've won races because of that turnout, then federal resources are going to be directed at our community, and we can really see a game change. And so I want to just encourage you about that. All right, let me see. Nash County, I went over. Let me just go Halifax County, Wilson County real quick, and then I'll cover the rest of these throughout the week, okay? So again, Wilson County, front part of your ballot is the same for the whole state. Turn it over, and that's when it starts changing. State Senate, District 4. Listen, Wilson. Wilson turns out strong and Wayne County turns out strong. Y'all can win this state Senate seat. Raymond Smith is such a superior candidate to Buck Newton. Buck Newton is just a MAGA Republican who is just hateful, and we need to win this race. And while we're at it, we need to defeat Ken Fontenot, and we need to vote for Dante Pittman. I'm looking at the voting record of Ken Fontenot, and I just, he's just kind of a Mark Robinson kind of guy who just thinks that there's no systemic issues in our country, and I don't get it. I just don't get it. I don't know what farms they grow Negroes like that. I don't get it. But Dante Pittman he's solid, he's young, he's got good ideas. I think he'll serve us well. And I want to ask you to vote for Dante Pittman. And then the races after that are all the same. Nothing is competitive other than you have a Wilson County Board of Education District 6 seat. And I need to check out these two candidates because I'm not familiar with them, okay? Halifax, I said a little bit about. My Wake County folk, y'all got a lot going on. Your ballot is crazy in Wake County. It is so crazy. But what's important about Wake County is you've got a couple other referendums. So you've got the constitutional amendment like everyone does in the state, but then you also have Wake County Public Library school bond. I think it's also one in Johnson County. Listen, the fact that you have school bonds in these counties, part of the problem is because of how severely we've underfunded public education. Now, I understand that it's the responsibility of the county to take care of the infrastructure, school buildings and stuff like that. and then the state comes along and they help out with teachers and those kinds of things. I get that. But because we have so severely underfunded public schools, and some of these communities are growing like a Johnson County, like a Wake County, they now have to come up with tax measures to be able to keep improving improving public schools. And so there's a couple referendums, bond referendums for them to be able to do that in public schools. There's a lot of really relevant school board races in Wake County. And I just want to highlight Jordan Blaze's race in District 3. Your commissioner race, Shanika Thomas, is doing an outstanding job. African-American female as chair of the commissioners, exceptional job. Want to ask that you continue to support her. Toshiba Rice on District 4 on the school board, Sam Hershey in District 6, Lindsay Mahaffey in District 8, some really, really strong. Lynn Edmonds, the incumbent in District 5. So these public school races are so important. These local races are so, not that every race isn't, but these local races are really important, okay? So that's the beginning part of the ballot. The big takeaway, I'm gonna let y'all have the balance of your time back. I said I would only go an hour. So I'm gonna give you back the last 10 minutes of your night so we can get ready. Who's meeting me at the polls in the morning? Let me see. Alicia Slaughter. She reminded me of how I mispronounced Alicia Slaughter's name. It's Alicia Slaughter. So thank you very much for that. And you are right. And I apologize, Alicia, even though she wasn't the one who tagged me on it, because she's very gracious like that. Here, guys, this is the bottom line. We need to vote early. We need to have the single biggest voting turnout day in North Carolina history. Lots of important things are on the line. Public education, housing, healthcare, state of our families, our religious liberties and freedoms, the autonomy to do what we feel as if is necessary for us to do with our bodies. Y'all know I'm a full life Democrat, right? So I don't want any woman to have to get an abortion. But I do know that that decision is not mine to make, and I don't get to decide who is in whose bed. Legislators don't need to have that power. And so there's a lot at stake here. And I'm asking you to get to the polls tomorrow. And then I want to deputize you to begin door knocking in your community, making phone calls, checking with people at church, and we'll see where this thing goes. Hey, Thursday night, 6 o'clock, Roland Martin's going to be with us at Word Tabernacle. We're going to host his unfiltered show live as we talk about North Carolina politics. And then we have a great weekend coming up with all kinds of stuff, including a Get Out the Vote rally. So if you want some paraphernalia, that kind of stuff, if you're a candidate and you just want to drop your stuff off and talk to our members in the community, meet us at 12 noon on Sunday in our parking lot, any candidate, and you can do that. So this is James Gailliard. Would you share this with someone else? I'm going to check on all of your comments when I end this call. I hope this was helpful, and I hope it's encouraging everybody to go ahead and vote. I appreciate you. We vote North Carolina. Let's get out and let's get out the vote. Love y'all. Have a great night.